people you know and love are going to die. And no matter what that voice tells you.
You're frightened right now, aren't you?
There's nothing you can do about it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mask of the Slasher. We are in our Cryptid Christmas season. Ooh. What is a cryptid, you may ask? Joshua?
A cryptid essentially is a creature that is rumored to exist but has not been scientifically proven. Cryptozoology is typically considered a pseudoscience because it relies on rumor and, sometimes, very minimal accounts of things. It's not really, they don't really go by the scientific method, put it that way. So it is considered a pseudoscience, but examples of cryptids would be, of course, Bigfoot, Loch Ness, Mothman, Jackalope. It's typically going to be creatures from folklore or urban legends, essentially.
Yes. And I will say that when I was a kid, I thought that it was a very interesting subject matter. Mm-hmm. I never believed in Bigfoot. I'm never going to. Sorry. But I think that was ruined by Harry and the Hendersons. He was too cute. I loved that movie. We decided, this evolved into a couple different things. First, it was, let's find cold shit that has to do with Christmas.
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, let's do Mothman Prophecies. And I was like, okay, cool, because that's a cryptid thing.
Right.
So then now it's Cryptid Christmas. So that is the movie we're going to be talking about. But I want to go through a couple different things pertaining to this before we start.
Right.
A lot of people don't think that Mothman Prophecies is a horror. Most people think horror movies are going to be something with blood and guts and, stabbing people in the eyeballs and, all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. That's not the case. The actual definition of horror is a film that is designed to frighten, shock, and disgust audiences. Or disgust. I mean, because you really can't disgust
this one doesn't fall into the disgust, but everything else, it's very psychological horror, put it that way.
This stars Richard Gere, Laura Linney, and the rest of them, they're kind of in there. I mean, his wife.
Deborah Messing's in there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and if you don't know who that is, if you ever watched Will and Grace, that's how I knew her. So yeah, we're gonna go for that one.
Yeah.
This movie is based on a book, and that book is based on what people think is factual. Mm-hmm. People's experiences, so on and so forth, and then written into a story. It's essentially it. The story starts off with Richard Gere. His name is John Klein in this movie. He is a political journalist based in Washington, D.C., of course. And him and his wife are in love. They're somewhat young couple, and they're going house shopping.
Yep.
And it's very exciting, and they decide to do it in the closet. Why? Why are people doing it in closets?
Yeah, that's just weird.
When you got the realtor somewhere else in the house.
Yeah.
I feel like it was pretty close in Amityville Horror, too.
Mm-hmm.
Stop doing it in closets. It's weird. Anyway, so on their way home, they're just so infatuated with each other and so in love. And she's driving, and suddenly she sees something, loses control because it is during the winter season, and she turns around, hits a tree, and she hits her head on the driver's side window. Yeah. This is why we have airbags, side curtain airbags.
That's
this is the real reason, is because she smacked her head. So somebody was like, we should put side curtain airbags in from now on. Anyway, so of course they go to the hospital. But unfortunately, while there, they do a CAT scan and whatever, and they find out that she has a very aggressive form of cancer in her brain.
Yep.
And they do operate, but they can't get it all. Ultimately, unfortunately, she passes away.
Yeah.
So we're in that, and John, he's just kind of trying to deal with life and whatever, and he decides he has to go and meet with the governor of Virginia, and he is going to drive there. Why people want to do that, I don't know, especially in wintertime still.
None of this would have happened if you just took a flight.
Yes, exactly. Just fly. It's safer. Anyway, so he's driving, and suddenly the electrical system in his car just goes...
Which I would like to add is kind of a classic UFO thing.
Yes.
A lot of people say who've seen UFOs or encountered UFOs that their car will shut down or their watch will stop, or all the things that they show in this, basically kind of a classic paranormal.
Yeah, and it's because supposedly... a lot of paranormal, any of this kind of stuff, pulls from energy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So his car takes a shit.
Yep.
He pulls off the road and he goes to a house.
Yes.
And this man that answers the door, the homeowner, he says that, you have been here the last 3 nights. Why are you here? He has a shotgun to him, and pulls John in, and then the police are called, and that's where we meet Laura Linney's character, Connie.
Yep.
And we continue on to where some shit starts to unravel. I don't think a lot of people have seen this,
Right.
especially in the horror community, because, like I said, it's not necessarily considered horror to some folks. It is horror. So I don't want to give everything away, but things start to happen. He learns from Connie that the town has been having some weird occurrences, and he's really thrown off by the fact that this guy is saying that he was seen
Right.
for 3 nights and he's never been there before, and that kind of thing.
Right.
So he decides to hang out.
Yeah, he basically decides to, use his journalism skills to investigate these things that are going on, these sightings of the Mothman and all these strange things that are happening in this town.
Yes. And part of the connection is when he was packing up his wife's stuff from the hospital, a nurse came in and said she knew she was going to die. And he said she saw angels. And so he goes and looks at this book she was drawing in, and it's these horrific dark pictures of Mothman, but he didn't know what that was at the time, of course. So when he's in this town, which is Point Pleasant, he sees that somebody else is drawing the same thing. And then he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And he was already pretty upset, obviously,
Right.
because his wife died. It was such a weird phenomenon. And she had said to him in the hospital, you didn't see it, did you?
Right.
And he didn't know what she was talking about. Probably was just like, oh, you're kind of a wackadoo because you hit your head.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
So he starts to go through and meet with the different townspeople, look at the police records, and try to do his own investigations. In the meantime, he starts to get some strange phone calls. The name of the man that he first meets at his house, his name is Gordon, and he stays in contact with him because he's just like, why do you think that you saw me? And just trying to figure that whole thing out. And Gordon seems to be slowly unraveling.
Yes.
And the townspeople are not taking him seriously. And which is ironic since other people have had weird experiences.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, why, yours is okay?
His are kicked up a notch.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
He's actually communicating with the whatever this thing is.
whatever this thing. Yeah, we don't know what this thing is. So yeah, we're just like, okay, that's cool. So we're just continuing on with that story. But like I said, I don't want to give a lot away because this movie is very detailed. I wrote 4 pages of notes because of it. And because there's a lot of coincidences and, things where at specific times happen and stuff like that. And so you're just like, why is this happening? And he learns that there is an author who wrote about this, and he basically forces his meeting on him. And it's just like, what is going on? Why is this happening? Because I will tell you that the phone calls he's receiving, a lot of it is weird riddles, essentially, is what these people are hearing, is like just weird numbers and just sporadic names of things.
Exactly.
And they don't know what the correlation is in any way. They're just like, whatever. And Laura Linney had a dream that she was in water and there were presents around her. Doesn't know what that means either, though.
Right.
Or the number 37 that she's told in there. So it's just trying to figure all that out. And that author is like, yep, I was getting all that same shit. And he said, maybe don't go into this anymore.
Don't dig into it anymore.
Yeah, just walk away.
Because it basically ruined the author's life when he started to dig into it. So he's trying to warn John not to go down the same path. And you can kind of see John starting to unravel as well at that point. So.
Yeah. Well, he's so grief-stricken because of his wife. And he just wants those answers.
Right.
And he just wants to see her again and know that, everything's fine and try to figure out why this happened.
Right.
And he just can't, they're just having a hard time putting it together. But ultimately, in the end, they do.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not telling you a bunch of details on purpose.
Right.
I really recommend watching this movie because the mystery is interesting. And the fact that this is based on supposed true stories is even more eerie and interesting. When we were kids and we learned about some of these creatures, the first one I remember, aside from Bigfoot, was Loch Ness.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I remember seeing the grainy photo that everybody has seen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is that? And it always looked like a dinosaur to me.
Yeah.
Was it a
plesiosaur,
plesiosaurus? Yeah. He likes to please people.
Yeah, he is a people pleaser.
Yeah.
He stops for photos.
Yeah. Like, hey. So, I remember seeing this stuff. We had these books from Time Life magazine. a lot of younger people aren't going to know what that is.
Yeah, but they used to be on TV all the time, all these different Time Life book series that you could order.
Yes. There was a time where we didn't have the internet, and then there was just stupid commercials selling you dumb crap on TV that you had to call an 800 number for,
Yep.
and people did it.
They did.
I mean, there's still some dumb coins going around, you know, that people are buying, but I don't think commemorative plates are happening
the Franklin
anymore.
Mint.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, Time Life books, and it was based on, you know, Time magazine.
Yeah.
And which is still around, obviously. The Time Life magazine books, there was 12 of these. Josh only has this one left, apparently.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I actually got them from like garage sales and stuff, so I only had a couple of them. I had this one, and I had one that was called Wizards and Witches, and I don't remember. I think I had at least one other one, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, there's ones that are about ghosts and all this stuff, and you can still buy them through like eBay and that kind of thing for fairly inexpensive.
Yeah.
And because there was a time, like I said, we didn't have the internet, so this was our source of knowledge
about weird stuff.
Yeah, and then encyclopedias.
Yeah, and I also had another book that was really cool. It was called Mysteries of the Unexplained. I have no idea where it came from, but we had
I know
it.
what you're talking about.
And it basically was kind of like all over, as far as it had some ghost stuff, it had some cryptids, UFOs, everything in there. I loved that book as a kid.
Yeah, I remember that book. I don't know why I remember
I wish
it,
I
but
still had it. I thought I did, but I can't find it. So.
yeah, well, big surprise for
Wah,
us.
wah.
So that's where we got most of our knowledge of these kinds of creatures, and it was fascinating. There was also, well, there's now new seasons of it, but there's a show called Unsolved Mysteries.
Yes.
That was on when we were kids and gave us creepy shit to watch. That terrifying song.
Yeah.
And then also there was a show called Ripley's Believe It or Not. And you may have seen the museums around still in tourist towns.
Yeah.
There's even one in the Netherlands, which is just weird to me. That's how we found out about this stuff. And it kept the aura of mystery behind it because we couldn't continue to search it out and figure out that these things may or may not be real.
Right.
This was fact to us.
Yeah, and also I should point out that the current Unsolved Mysteries that's on Netflix, they actually did an episode about the Mothman. For me, it wasn't really anything that I didn't already know, but for somebody that wants to learn about it, that would be a great starting point, I think.
Yeah, because
They're very well done.
The newer seasons are a little bit more detailed and not so corny as the original seasons were. The original seasons are good for entertainment, and naps.
For sure.
But that's the extent of it. And at one point, when we did have cable, we were flipping through some channels one day, and there was a Mothman documentary. And we were watching this, and we still laugh about it to this day. They had built out of plywood basically a cutout of Mothman, and then put bicycle reflectors on his eyes, and they drove around a corner to see how it would reflect.
Yeah,
and
how it would look.
If that's now
Pseudoscience.
Yeah, it was really corny.
It was.
But when I was doing all the research for this and looking up that particular documentary, because there's a lot of them out there, I noticed that they said even in the actual book Mothman Prophecies that they compared it to bicycle reflectors as the eyes. So I'm like, okay, well, I see where it kind of came from now, but still corny as shit. It just it reminded me of like when people do cutouts for Christmas and put them on their lawn and stuff, and I'm like, bro,
come on now.
Yeah, this is not how you find out about some shit.
Yep.
But at the same time, we don't know any of this stuff is real or not.
Yep.
People just want to believe something.
Yeah.
And so they believe this corny shit. So, but back to the movie. This movie is really good. I mean, it definitely screams early 2000s.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
With the weird glitchy screens, and it kind of reminds you of like Seven.
Yeah.
And The Ring, that kind of stuff. But I think that's what makes it somewhat charming and interesting. It's still a little corny.
Yes.
And there's still, an underlying love story in this and whatever, because we couldn't have movies back then without.
Right, but I
some
like
other
that they
story.
don't overemphasize
Thank God, yes.
Laura Linney and Richard Gere's budding relationship. You know,
Yeah.
it's hinted at, but you never see them kiss or anything like that. There's no like unnecessary sex scene or anything like that. You know, which I think is nice. It's there just to kind of because they have some good chemistry and stuff, but it's more about the actual story of of them trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So I
Yes.
appreciate that kind of took a back seat.
Yeah. And like I said, this is all based on true stories, so these people say, you
Right.
know. And Mothman is not just something that has been seen in West Virginia. It's all over the world. People say that they have seen this creature.
And supposedly it's typically seen before some kind of disaster occurs.
Yes. Hence the Mothman Prophecies name.
Yep, exactly.
So when you start to watch what I recommend, if you've never heard of this or you've never decided to dive into it, even if you have heard of it, watch the movie first,
Yeah.
then the documentaries, because if you watch the documentaries first, then the movie, it kind of ruins it.
Right.
You know, and it's interesting to see what the story was actually based on. Neither Josh or I have read this book.
But I plan to at some point.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that I haven't by now, honestly.
too.
But at some point I would like to read it. And I do know that there's a lot more in the book, a lot more things happen than what's in the movie. So.
Exactly. Like most books
Yeah.
are usually better than the movie. So we both recommend this movie,
Oh, yeah.
definitely. We've owned it for a very long time, and it comes out at least once a year.
Yeah.
If we don't pull it off the shelf, then, you know, it's on TV
Yeah, stream it,
somewhere.
yeah.
Because it is such a good movie, and there is some nostalgia to it for us.
Yeah.
Because this was, gosh, we were probably maybe in our early 20s when this came out,
Yeah,
something like that, 21, 22. So, you know, it definitely stands out to us for that reason.
Right.
And back then, although we had the internet, it sucked ass.
Yeah.
It was not as informative. Hence why they were able to get away with it for the Blair Witch Project and have that made-up website.
So many people thought it was real.
Exactly, because we didn't have ways to really seek it out. And conspiracy theorists didn't have ways to put things on social media.
Right.
So we just had to kind of go off of what we had, and that was it.
Yeah.
I think it also made it a little bit better because of that mystery.
Yeah.
Because I think once we had the internet and the full use that we have now, it kind of has just taken away the fun of some things.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, because why did these people come up with this? And why did it continue
Yeah.
all these years,
Yeah.
you know? Why have people, despite having the internet, and there still being no definitive proof of any of these things, why are people still
Why
following
does it persist? That's the
Yeah.
question, you know. And I like to think, there's things out there that we can't explain, you know. I hope there is, honestly, because I think it makes the world that much more interesting and
Yeah.
of a place to be. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And the thing I love about this movie is just that it's an actual good movie about this subject.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, now you watch it and there are some things that are kind of corny or outdated or whatever, but for its time,
Yeah.
such a well-made movie about this subject and not being overly cheesy or, you know, it's actually like well put together with committed performances with actors you've actually heard of. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's
not
held up.
It's not some B movie, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think it's great that somebody took the initiative to want to do that. You know?
Exactly. And not fuck it up completely.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, because, I mean, it is nice to have some sort of mystery in our life somewhere. And I think with this specific story, because there's so many people have said that they've seen this, and there is a real stories behind that, and what people have experienced with it, not just seeing him,
Right.
but you'll find out about a bridge in this and that kind of thing. All of that really actually happened.
Yeah.
How they put together the two, you'll have to see.
Yes.
But that's what I think makes it even more valid. Because Bigfoot, people are just like, yep, I saw his footprint.
Yeah.
And that's what we've gone off of, is one footprint forever,
Yeah.
you know. And us being in, you know, the Pacific Northwest, Bigfoot is a huge deal up here.
Yeah.
And I mean, not in a total serious manner
Right,
necessarily. There
right.
is a museum we haven't gone to yet, by the way. But, you know, there's merchandise galore for it still.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's just because he's cute and
Oh,
funny.
yeah, absolutely.
He's
yeah.
kinda
Why wouldn't
dorky.
you? I mean, you know, even in Point Pleasant now, there's a Mothman museum, and they sell T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And I'm super tempted to order one, but that's besides
Yeah.
the point, you know. But I mean, yeah, I mean, why not? You know, why not make something fun out of it? You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's like I said, I think it just makes the world better for there to be things that we can't explain, and to think of something that's beyond our understanding, and that there are still mysteries out there, you know, that not everything can be explained by science, or not everything's out there on the internet, you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I don't know. I think it's fun.
I do too.
And
I do
exciting.
too. And we're going to continue for the rest of this month celebrating Cryptid Christmas.
Yes.
And we'll pull in some other stuff that, you know, pertains to cryptids in some way or another. And we'll talk about those because there's plenty out there
Oh, yeah.
that are still in the horror category or corny horror
Yeah, I was
category.
going to say, some of the ones we talk about may not be quote-unquote as good of movies
Yeah.
as Mothman Prophecies, but still fun movies. Still
Well,
enjoyable
yeah.
movies.
And I mean, if Dark Night of the Scarecrow. If that one's still doing well, that one was a TV movie.
Right.
It's not even like bloody and gross or anything.
Exactly.
And it has well over 800 views at
Yeah.
this point. So
Thanks for everybody that's checked that one out, by the
yeah,
way.
it is one of Josh's favorites
Yeah.
right there. So
That's
definitely.
very exciting to me.
But we want to know, have you ever seen this? Have you heard of this movie? Have you heard of the stories behind Mothman or other cryptids that you'd be interested in learning about?
Have you ever seen or encountered a cryptid?
Yes.
Tell us your stories.
Jackalopes,
Yeah.
hanging out. I want to know what people have seen. I've never seen shit.
Yeah. Me neither.
Yeah. Wah, wah. And you'd think with all the dark roads and shit up here,
Yeah,
Mothman,
maybe someday.
see some bicycle
I like to
reflectors.
think we both have a lot of life left, so there's still
Yes.
a chance we could see Sasquatch at some point.
Maybe, just maybe. Anyway, I think that's it for this episode.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.